Welcome back to another riveting episode of Mo's Minute. This is a Mo's Minute special edition because we are joined today by one of my best friends, Jamila, who wants to be a guest star. She's our very first Mo's Minute guest star. So say hi, Jamila.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on Mo's Minute.
I'm happy to have you. So, since Jamila and I are both Mercy Girls, proud to be Mercy Girls, we wanted to visit the grave of Mother Baptist Russell, whom we heard a lot about in our education. I don't remember half of what we heard, but Jamila knows it all. So, yeah, this is Mother Baptist Russell right here. She was the founding California Sisters of Mercy from Ireland.
That's right.
And I remember that she founded St. Mary's Hospital in the city, and that's where I was born. So, peace.
I like that.
Yeah, right?
I love thinking about Mary Baptist Russell because in so many ways, if it wasn't for her, you and I would be less likely to have met.
That's so true. And it's been 25 years.
Exactly. So just some biographical facts about Mary Baptist Russell. She was born, as we see here, April 18th, 1828 in Ireland. So she came from a well-educated middle-class family. She was someone who, from a very young age, was dedicated to and really interested in the plight of the poor. She wanted to, specifically when she decided she wanted to become a nun, she wanted to work with a religious order that was dedicated to the poor. And so for her, that was going to be the Sisters of Mercy. So she entered religion, as we see here, in 1848. She became a professed sister in 1851.
And that was, 8 years after Catherine McAuley died?
I believe so.
They weren't really, we learned about them in tandem, but they weren't actually connected.
Exactly. So she did study under and was under the tutelage of sisters who had known her.
Cool.
During her lifetime. So in 1854, it's when our San Francisco story begins. That is when the priests from the Archdiocese of San Francisco come to Ireland because they are seeking out Catholic nuns who can come back to San Francisco and teach children.
They found a lot of them.
They did. They found the Presentation Sisters.
Yeah.
They found the Sisters of Mercy.
All right.
And so it was decided, everybody wanted to go. They all wanted to take this incredible voyage that was going to be by boat, starting from Ireland, going to Liverpool, from Liverpool to New York all the way down to Nicaragua, overland, and then onto another boat up to San Francisco. It took them something like 3 months, if you also include the time they spent kind of at rest in New York.
And then Baptist Russell, didn't she had a connection to the famine. Wasn't she inspired by the plight of
so that
the famine victims from Ireland?
That was definitely something that was such a remarkable tragedy that was sort of ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Not only do you have the famine occurring in Ireland, you have the penal laws that the British government implements upon the Irish, which outlaws education for Catholics, it outlaws Catholic schools, and so many of the sisters in the late 18th and early 19th centuries are really trying to respond to that. They're setting up schools for Catholics and whatnot. Once emancipation happens, and Baptist Russell was born after emancipation, it really has this blossoming effect in which Catholic lay people and also Catholic religious and priests are all looking, Irish religious and priests, they're all looking to assert their Catholicism.
Uh-huh.
And so that is something that definitely gets carried over as they come to San Francisco. They were teaching Gaelic in the high schools that the Sisters of Mercy ran.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Baptist Russell was very, very invested in Irish emancipation and Irish independence from England.
Good for her.
So
that's
was
awesome.
Definitely something that kind of crops up in the archives that you hear in her letters and whatnot.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So what did she have? So 1854 is when they came here to California.
Yes.
And she was basically centered in San Francisco, right?
Yep.
Did she have a role in the Magdalene Asylum? I know they buried her there when she died in 1898.
So in 1854, they basically showed up and the goal was to start school. Well, the Presentation Sisters got here a week before them and had already started school.
Only 1 week?
Yes.
Wow.
So the Presentation Sisters and the Sisters of Mercy came together from Liverpool to New York. The Sisters of the Presentation continued on, the Sisters of Mercy stayed in New York for a few weeks.
Oh.
They stayed with another group of Mercy sisters who were there. So presentations get here a week before them. The school's already started. They only need one at the time.
Yeah.
And so with that already fulfilled, she turns her attention to nursing because the Sisters of Mercy are dedicated to education. They're dedicated to working with the poor and to working with the sick.
Oh. Okay.
So it gave them a lot of flexibility. Whereas the Presentation Sisters, they are only dedicated primarily
just to schooling, yeah.
So it made sense for them to take the school. And so she basically said, all right, what's next? We need a hospital. So they find their very first place to live. They're right next to the State Marine Hospital, which is horribly run. Like the way that like medicine and nursing happened in San Francisco at this time was so behind the curve. So they start visiting the sick and they start visiting the poor and they take on home visitations. At one point, the city of San Francisco says, hey, we're going to privatize our healthcare. So we're looking for a third party to take over the management of our sick. And she said, we're here. Count us in. We'll do it. And they were like, no, you're women and you're Catholic and you're immigrants. We don't really want you. But one thing leads to another. Eventually, they do end up taking on that contract. That's partly to do with the work they did during an outbreak of cholera in the city. And they were the ones who were...
I think that was in the 70s, 1870s.
There's one that happens earlier in the 1850s, actually.
Okay.
And they had already had experience in Kinsale, Ireland, treating cholera victims.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think the 1870s thing you're thinking about is the smallpox outbreak.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's probably true. Yeah. And then, so there were, 6 nuns underneath her when they left Ireland? So. And they're just all traveling together, and it's all this group of, 7 nuns?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. And she was one of the youngest. She was only 25 when she was given this charge to lead this group and basically figure out how they were going to set up a way to live in San Francisco. At the time, one of the Presentation Sisters reminisced in the annals that there are no sidewalks. There are no paved roads. Everything is muddy and
cobblestone.
And some stone, but a lot of mud. You know, a lot of wood boardwalks and stuff built over it.
Because they were traveling by horse-drawn carriage.
Yeah, it's a shanty town. There's very little that's built out of brick and stone. In 1854, 1855, that's starting to change. The Sisters of Mercy arrived just as what we now know as Old St. Mary's Cathedral is being...
That's where you guys got married.
So that was one of the first brick, well-built buildings in San Francisco at the time. Prior to that, there had been so many fires that had burned everything down.
Oh, yeah. And there was another one coming later, too.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So, and then the Magdalene Asylum was in Potrero Hill, right?
Eventually ended up there. Initially, everything started at the hospital.
Oh.
So St. Mary's Hospital, and I would have to double check the location for you before it moved to its current location.
It wasn't always on Stanyan?
It was not always on Stanyan.
Learning something new every day, guys.
So the hospital really was the center of their work. They had rooms dedicated to what became known as the Magdalene Asylum. It was where former prostitutes who no longer wanted to live on the street, who wanted to live a different lifestyle, who were willing to kind of have a life of prayer and penance, that's where they were housed. They had rooms for the sick. They had rooms for the sisters. They did all sorts of things. They had an employment center where, one of the very first things that Catherine McCauley did was create a House of Mercy.
I remember that, yes.
And that was specifically designed for young unmarried women who were usually working as domestics. A safe place for them to live. So that's what Baptist Russell did as well. They created help for people who were looking for employment, job boards, that kind of thing. They took in orphans. They went up to Sacramento and founded another house.
There's Sisters of Mercy houses all over. I ran into one in Savannah.
Yeah.
Literally just ran into it. Wait a minute.
Exactly.
Sisters of Mercy, I know them. Oh, right. The Magdalene Asylum. I don't like that it's called Magdalene Asylum. I feel like that connects it to the Magdalene Laundries in Ireland.
I mean, that is where it comes from.
But they're different.
Sort of.
Because there was a lot of
Sort of.
ugly things happening at the Magdalene laundries.
And yeah, I mean, that is where they ended up going. Magdalene, obviously taken from the name of Mary Magdalene.
Of course.
Right?
Because she was a prostitute.
Exactly. The idea of which giving a safe space, giving a room for women who no longer wanted to engage in sex work, a place for them to live and to work. Obviously, this is a space where the kind of institution where a lot of abuses took place. Were these happening under Baptist Russell's time? I'd like to think not.
I hope not.
From the letters, from the archival evidence we have, she definitely sought to treat women with care and to preserve their dignity. But again, obviously, there's been a lot of research done about this and a lot of new evidence that's come to light that is really ugly and a really unfortunate kind of stain on Catholic history, on the history of women religious. Obviously add into that the abuses that have happened in various schools, schools for like Native American children especially too. That's been a huge thing that's been uncovered of late.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that is it's the good and the bad, right? These ideals that were held forth around treating the poor with dignity, around helping women in need, and then seeing the really unfortunate ways that people who had power over them use that power to do abusive things. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Ugly part of history, but there's a lot of ugly parts of history, and we want to make sure we do not cover that up. So it's still important to share with everybody. So what else do we want to share about Baptist Russell's life? She came to the city.
Yeah.
She focused on healthcare, education, not so much education because presentation. Oh, obviously.
Yes.
Obviously they got there.
Obviously, the number of Catholic children increased in San Francisco enough to be able to support multiple schools.
Well, they don't believe in birth control, so this tracks. This all tracks.
One thing that I actually think is really interesting about Baptist Russell is that she and her fellow sisters were among the first women allowed to visit San Quentin prison.
Really?
Yes, and so they petitioned the governor of California to be able to have access so that they could minister to Catholic prisoners.
Oh.
They would bring them books and newspapers. They would write letters on their behalf.
Anointing of the sick.
Exactly.
Maybe giving communion.
Only priests can do that.
No, nuns can do it too.
Oh, really?
That must be new.
I don't remember. Hello, audience. There is an expert in this who would like to surface the comments and correct us one way or the other. We would very much appreciate it.
Yeah, I think nuns can do it too, but that's probably a very recent thing.
Okay.
I could definitely be wrong.
That's the thing we're going to Google.
We're going to Google that, yeah.
So that was a great deal that they did.
Yeah. And then she died 1898. She was 60, it looks like?
69.
Oh, no, I think 70. 69, 70.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, she did a lot in her time.
Yeah. Apparently she really loved natural history, so she had a whole collection of, like, fossils and all sorts of, like, things of that nature.
I love hearing stuff like that about people.
Yeah.
I mean, you could Google her life. You've read books about her life,
I'm just going to do a shout out for Sister Mary Catherine Doyle's lovely biography, Like a Tree by Running Water, the story of Mary Baptist Russell.
I haven't read it.
It was
Camila has.
For my dissertation that I wrote on Catholic sisters in San Francisco in the 19th century.
That's why I wanted to have you on here, because you are the expert.
Yeah, she was funny. Like, she was funny. She liked jokes. They told stories like she once gave her own mattress away to a man who was poor. And when the sisters went to check her room to see what she was sleeping on, she had just put like a little carpet out for herself.
Oh, wow.
So they filmed her to Reverend Mother on there so she couldn't give it away again. as she
Wow.
was aging and she was, sort of becoming more physically infirm, she still continued to come along to do visitations with the sick. And she didn't want the sisters to worry about her,
Of course.
because she couldn't heft all the really heavy baskets. So she found a way to like strap like blankets and towels and stuff under her habit. And then when they arrived to the person's home that they were visiting, she would like unveil all this stuff to give to them.
Wow.
So she was very much remembered as being a woman who was a soul of great generosity. Someone who was very forward thinking as well. She did an incredible amount of work to raise money in order to maintain her sisters and the institutions they were founding. Reaching out to work both with the state and local governments as well as with, private donors and whatnot. Just a really incredible leader, and someone who I think should be recognized more when we talk about
More than just the science and math building at school.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, she deserves more than just a building.
Yeah. But she's the foundress of quite a hefty legacy here in this area.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else of note that we should tell people? Anything like, I mean, we've already told them what she did, but is there, besides the Magdalene Asylum and founding St. Mary's Hospital, is there anything else that's is still around today, like buildings or whatever that she may have helped establish?
Definitely the Sisters of Mercy in Sacramento, because she was the one who went to Sacramento, sailed on the river in order to scout out the land where they were going to build their mother house and an orphanage. That land ended up getting purchased by the state government. It is where the Capitol building now sits in Sacramento.
Seriously?
Yeah, there is actually a really lovely statue of commemorating the Sisters of Mercy, because it was in part their land that was used in order to build that complex.
Well, I'm glad there's a statue for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, anything else you'd like to share?
No, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here.
Thank you for being our first guest star
about Baptist Russell.
Yeah, no, this was really interesting. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for telling people all the things that we learned and I forgot. So, all right, I think that is a wrap. Thank you for tuning in to Mo's Minute, and we will see you next week. Bye.